Ding, ding, ding.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the evening that we're all looking forward to the most. The speeches. Up first will be Robin, but a few housekeeping rules first. I think Arthur's going to be going around shortly with a sweepstake on the best man speech, so he knows nothing about it until I've just said this. So here we go around, so if we can have a bet on just the best man speech and everything that entails. That will be going around. But up first is Robin. Lovely words about you.
Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to sit here. We all are here, friends of Ross, Amy, family, and no children. My name is Robin Harris, and I'm Amy's father. Now, tradition dictates that the father's bride makes a speech on this happy occasion, and I'm struggling for a voice at the moment, so Daniel's agreed to help me out. After this escapade with the rings, I'm not so sure whether. Try and push you, but I see no reason why you should be spared anyway. This is one of the happiest days of my life, which generally is walking Amy down the aisle, as I call it, and she looks absolutely lovely, and I think she looks radiant. This is a story all about Amy and Ross. And this whole thing. First time I met Ross was not under the most auspicious circumstances. It was at Royal Free Hospital in London, where Amy had a major operation in about 11 hours, and being a natural cynic, I wasn't sure Ross was going to arrive or not. And Amy needed some TLC, trained her mother, banished me from the ward and done her hair and makeup. Ross duly arrived and helped her recovery, helped her through it, and I was so pleased because you needed a bit of help at the time. After that relationship deepened, and Ross planned to take Amy away the first time to the Posh Hotel in Cornwall. Reservations were duly made, and it was only when they're nearly there the horror dawned upon Ross that left him behind his wallet that contained his credit card.
Again. What's anything happened today?
And that sure is a way to impress a girl. But I think Amy summed up and she realised how mortified and horrified Ross was by the whole episode and soon forgave him. Further trips followed from Mum, and it's good to see them so excited and happy in each other's company, and they really were two peas out of pod. The next big milestone came when we bought the first house together in West London, and it's a pretty fraught purchasing process that aged them, I think, both of them.
Looks like it.
The house was that's what I'd call it, a doer-upper. Ross, Daniel and friends soon got stuck in and transformed it into a lovely place to live in and also to work in. And in April, Amy and Ross came to visit us in Cambridge. We were sitting outside by the mill pond having lunch on a sunny April day, and they said they had an announcement to make. Well, Trina immediately thought of hats and outfits. That's fantastic. But I had a big clue beforehand because Amy was only drinking orange juice. So I was pretty certain.
Was it 11 in the morning?
That's not very little to do. Jack was on his way then, so we knew that time, and he arrived on the 5th of November, which is fairly apt as he caused some fireworks on the way, and he gave everyone a big fright, including the doctors and midwives. But his birthday will be easy to remember. I might be a bit biased, this is my grandson, but he really is a lovely boy, He's full of smiles, he's full of happiness, and babysitting is a pleasure, not a chore. And this leads us on to where we are today. We're gathered at this lovely venue to witness and celebrate the marriage of Amy and Ross. And as I said before, it's great to hear with their families, their friends, and surrounded by people they love. And I find that I'd like to add a special thanks to Daniel for agreeing to help me out if I needed it. Because it's fraught enough doing one speech by this too. Now, we're going to get a lot of these, so I only leave you one thing. Would you please charge your glasses and be upstanding? And move the toast to Amy and Ross, the bride and groom.
Good.
Now we all know Ross likes to substitute nervousness with humour. So I think we're all definitely looking forward to this one. Over to you, Ross.
Well, what do you mean? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I think it's generally the groom's prerogative to begin by thanking everyone, so I will gradually work my way around to various people who need to be mentioned and thank for helping us where we are here today. With that in mind, first of all, thank you to Robin and Trina. You've welcomed me into your family. Have always been very supportive of me and Amy. Made some wonderful fudge. Sorry, you didn't make any wonderful fudge. The fudge just arrived. But most of all, thank you for making such a wonderful woman, Amy. The woman I'm truly looking forward to spending the rest of my life with. I think without your support, it would have been difficult to sort out getting our house and to organising the stay here today. So thank you very much for all that help and support you've given us. It's truly appreciated. So with that in mind, Robin and Trina. Yeah. So I guess that then leads to my mum and dad. Quickly moving on. Thank you first and foremost for providing a loving, eventful childhood. It was not always easy for you, and there were a number of times where you had to make personal sacrifices to ensure that me and Daniel had the most amount of opportunities that you could provide. Being now a parent myself, I do somewhat appreciate the responsibilities. That's the short haircut. And pressures that entails. And I think you don't get often to say it, or maybe you don't say it enough, but do appreciate those, because without that, me and Daniel wouldn't be where we are today. So. Okay. Talking of Daniel, my brother, my best man. It's nice to have such a strong relationship with your only sibling, at least for the next 30 minutes until he's finished. I will be fully ready to reevaluate said relationship, but I'm sure it will be fine. I think the one thing I would like to say is, you are one of the most generous and talented people I know, and good luck, but not in the next half an hour. moving on, I think it's always good for a groom to thank those people who have travelled. There's always, you know, in the room, there's always people who have travelled long distances. Which in this case means pretty much everyone. Because in Harvest Bay we did pretty much pick the only venue about as far away from where everybody lives without crossing a sea as we could possibly get. Which now makes me realise why Mum and Dad decided to move down. Read into that what you will. But I do have to say certain thank yous to Mary and Liz for coming down from Scotland. It's a good trip. I won't say anything about the other thank you to Simon Go, for coming all the way from Sally, California. However, in this case, you have been trumped. Because in Sarah, our very own Antipodean, we do have someone who came from even further and from an even sunnier clime. So, thank you to those that have travelled. No, everyone. Okay, you can't mention one bridesmaid without bringing up the others. I think it's safe to say you all look lovely today. It was a very good job. Thank you for all the help you've all provided during the process. Amy's been fairly calm throughout, so she didn't need much, but in case she did well. But no, truly, thank you for all your help. You're a great bunch, and I'm sure you'll help us get the party started tonight. And you know, truly look forward to having good times in the future. So for this one, everyone should be upstanding. To the bridesmaids. Put them bigger. Can't mention the bridesmaids without mentioning the groomsmen. It's a good job we're getting this in early. Otherwise, half may have already be in bed. Or have no trousers on. I think truly thank you to Arthur for sacrificing his trousers. As being committed to the task of splitting your trousers. So, thank you for that. I think an additional point is, you know, looking around the room, there are a lot of people who I'm very close to, and there's a lot of people who could have been, you know, groomsmen, ushers, but let's be honest, 5 is enough for him. I think we're almost calling me Jay-Z. So, I think, you know, thank you all for all the good times we've had. Thank you in some cases for keeping me out of trouble. Or for getting me in trouble. But, you know, you're a great bunch, and I'm truly grateful for that. So, again, to the groomsmen. They don't need to stand up. With that though, we do need to hand out some gifts. So, Dan, James, there are 4 boxes there, which one needs to go to each bridesmaid, or 1, 2, 3.
I've left your card in the box.
Amazing wrapping paper.
So feel free to open them up. We are introduce him later. When you celebrate, me and Amy will celebrate with
This is like these look better. Oh wow.
Okay.
Pretty impressive.
And now on to Amy. For those of you who've known me the longest, you probably wondered on numerous occasions whether we'd actually end up being here today. But I think, in Amy it's truly obvious why I couldn't help but want to marry such a beautiful lady. So, Amy, you are truly the kind of woman who lights up any room. You dazzle without trying, and I think that's a truly fantastic trait. You also manage to do it without being pretentious or showy. Something like keep watching. However, do not let natural charisma fool you. Behind that smooth exterior is a steely determination, which can, in some cases, be manifested in a fairly razor-strong temper. However, I am truly assured that it's not in fact a razor-sharp temper, it's just I don't fully understand the instructions. I'll let you do the judgment. However, I do think we need to say thank you because, that drive and determination has meant that within approximately 2.5 months, Amy's managed to organise pretty much single-handedly, because I've been rubbish, this whole event. Which, whilst looking after a newborn baby, is which does then bring me on to the beast. In our house. Which is a little ironic, bearing in mind he is about the smallest baby on our NCT group. However, I still feel he's the beast. It's probably at this point, or during the ceremony at some point, when the groom talk about their aspirations for continuing the bloodline. With that though, I will just say that rather than dreaming about the potential, I can say that you are truly a stunning mum, and in drag, again pretty much single-handedly, you've created a really wonderful image. I would raise a drink to Jack, but it's probably I've been told by numerous people that having babies, moving house, getting a new job, organising a wedding are some of the most stressful things you can do in your life. Well, me and Amy managed to do everything in about 1.5 years. and I have to say that actually through that process, the characteristics I described earlier have only shone through and made me realise why I feel and how do I sum up my feelings for Amy? So I think the best way to put it is that if the days going forward have been as happy as the days we've spent together so far, then I'll truly be grateful. And so with that, would you all please stand?
Kicking off.
Mum, throw your chair. Would you all please raise your glasses to Amy, Mrs. Hockey. And with that mind, with that in mind, I guess I have to hand over to Daniel. Even though we can go straight to cutting the cake. Because let's be honest, what you're about to say is largely not based on fact at all. All the best.
Come on, Dad.
Well, here goes nothing. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for being here today. I hope you're having a good time. Thanks for a very well-presented speech, Ross. I didn't expect anything else. And talk about put the pressure on, I really appreciate it. This is the point where I was going to introduce myself with some of the people that I haven't met today and some of the people that don't know who I am, but after my shenanigans from earlier, I think that would be a bit of a waste of time, I'm sure you all know. So I'll move swiftly on. I'd like to start by saying a big thank you to the bridesmaids. I think you've done an amazing job and you've been everything that Amy could have wished for today. I think everyone will agree that all of you, Annie, Amy, Lauren and Sarah, are looking lovely today. And before I get too carried away, I'd also like to say a big thank you to everyone for taking the trip to the end of the UK. Ross has already stolen my thunder on this slide a little bit awkward.
Stolen your best material.
This is the second time this has happened. I'll roll with it anyway. Of course we've got Sarah from America, and finally we've got Mum and Dad from Penzance.
Thanks for making the effort.
Big thumbs up to you guys, thank you very much.
What's next, Amy?
Wow. Have you seen this? When Ross first proposed to Amy and they set a date for the big day, he very kindly asked me to be his best man. As I'm sure you can all imagine, I was extremely excited at that time. I love stag do's. That was my chance to be in full control and book one all for myself, so quite thoughtful of you, Ross, thank you very much indeed. That being said, it quickly dawned on me that I would be standing here today in front of everyone and probably embarrassing myself a little bit. Not really a fan of public speaking, to be honest with you, but knowing what Ross has got up to over the years, he should be just as, if not more nervous than me right now. So sit back, relax, enjoy the party. So Ross, where do we start? We actually, we gave Ross one veto last night. Things are that bad sometimes, but we'll move on. Of course, as I'm sure you can imagine, we both grew up together, being brothers. We went to the same schools, we went to the same tennis clubs. We did an awful lot together growing up as brothers. We were best friends too. Just to cement the fact that we were brothers, Mum and Dad, for some reason, insisted on us dressing the same all the time. They bought us the same clothes, they bought us the same t-shirts, shoes, The lot. Obviously we couldn't share, unfortunately. But nevertheless they tried to make us look as similar as they could. That being said, you would kind of expect us to grow out of that. So it is a little bit disappointing that Ross has copied my suit. Bit awkward, but there you go. Ross in life is generally, as I'm sure most of you know, annoyingly good at whatever he does, or the complete opposite, pretty poor. When growing up, he used to beat me at everything we did, and anything that I had a chance at, he refused to play. It was either a crap game or for old people or something that he really wasn't willing to entertain. He was a keen footballer. Me and Dad often used to travel the country watching him play at the weekends. Ross running around like a headless chicken, barking orders out, everyone you could see, and anyone in hearing distance. But overall, it was a massive success. And over the years, was awarded a number of trophies and bits and bobs, which caused the next issue. The fight between Ross and Mum for space on the mantelpiece. Ross with his trophies and Dad with whatever she could convince Dad to buy for her. That was not without sacrifice though, as Ross generally manages to provoke the one bully from any football team he plays against. Who generally follows him around the pitch and kicks him more than they kick the ball. And unfortunately Ross has struggled to grow out of this. When Ross hit his teens, he embraced the fresh distractions that we all hit: alcohol, partying, going out and having a good time. But somehow he managed to secure his degree, and even a master's degree, giving him the opportunity to leave behind his prosperous career as a teenager. One being the local milkman, who generally left as many pints of milk on the road, smashed as he delivered. And the second being a silver service waiter at the local Marriott Hotel, who was generally sleeping off hangovers in the laundry room. Now Ross is enjoying a successful career in telecommunications. Even with all that studying, Ross always is willing to go the extra mile to conquer any challenge that may come his way in life. Particular favourite of mine, just to give you an example, Ross at his first job interview was at a company called Aircom. He'd just spent 4 years studying, as we've just established, and they gave him a written exam. Somehow he got stuck. So what did he do? Cheated, of course. He went prepared. He had his textbook. The silly employers left him in the room on his own. So I think he got the best score that they've ever seen. So on day one, they must have been expecting Einstein to rock up. Instead, they got James Blunt. Ross has already touched on this a little bit, but over the years he's made an awful lot of good friends. A lot of you, of course, are all here today. 4 of which are his groomsmen. And Ross has wanted everyone to have as much involvement in today as possible. So 3 of the groomsmen are going to help describe some of Ross's main qualities this afternoon. And I'll invite Louis to join me to kick things off.
Stone denim, a long gold chain, and a big gold chain with Ross on it. Ross, and you know,
Just in case.
at that time he didn't really have the panache and whatnot that he's got now, so nobody really noticed when he entered the room. So with that, he's looking around for somebody to speak to, and nobody really took him. So he's standing in the kitchen door frame, I don't know why, but he decides to do a pull-up. The door frame and pulled himself up. Now I'm standing on the other side of the room so I can see this, but still nobody's really paid enough attention. So then he's made this loud grunting noise, at which point everyone looks round, and pulled himself sort of horizontal. So everyone's like, well, impressive, but what's it doing? And I think it was that point that his fingers give way and he just slammed it. The deck, like a bit of old rolled carpet being thrown onto the stairs. But after it took a while for the laughter to die down, and the laughter turned to concern. Ross struggling to breathe and severely winded himself. And, it was that point, the line that never escapes me. Is, I think, so, yeah, I meant to do that. I don't think it was at that point that when I thought this is going to be my best friend for the rest of my life. But that's how it turned out. And all I can say is that I'm very glad that he had us. It's been an amazing venture and lifetimes of little stories that like that. So thank you very much, Ross.
Next up, Martin.
They're gone.
Hi everyone, I'm Martin. I just want to start and say congratulations to Ross and Amy for an amazing wedding. But mainly, well done to Ross, because looking at Amy today, how funny she is, you've clearly punched well above your As many of you probably know and have experienced on many occasions, well, Ross is really loud. And this became quite apparent to me a few years ago. I was working on a TV show called The Real Hustle. For those who don't know, The Real Hustle was essentially a show that highlighted scams and cons that members of the public could fall victim to. In each episode there was a segment called bar bets or prop bets. And what we'd do is we'd find a cool bar, we'd invite 100 or 200 people along to fill it, and then on the day we'd go around and we'd select a very small number who'd impress upon us to sit at the table with the presenters and take them on a mini game. Now, the show was mainly popular because, especially amongst the male commodity, because of a female presenter called Jess Clement. And Ross was no different. So being the good friend that I am, I invited Ross along to the location where we were filming that prop bets. Now the way that the casting worked, like the person to impress was the director. There was only going to be sort of 10 out of the 200 that would get chosen. And he was John Richards, the director. He was quite a larger-than-life character, a very confident guy. And so if you impressed him, he would have you in front of his cameras. Now, I had full intentions on the day to point Ross out and introduce him and make sure that Ross got a slice of the action and wasn't left 6 hours milling around in the background. But unfortunately, I failed miserably. I got very, very busy. I got massively sidetracked, completely lost Ross. And it came to filming. I had no idea if he'd met John or not. As it was dawning on me, my failure, I did spot Ross in the crowd, making himself at home, very familiar with a lot of the people that were there. And I thought, you know, well, I can't feel too guilty. At least he seems to be having a good time. However, I needn't have worried, because moments later, just as they're ready to record, and the presenters sat in the seats, I hear my director go, "Ross, take a seat, buddy." Like a dog out of the truck, straight there, straight onto the seat, opposite Jess. Now the moral to this story is, it became very, very clear that Ross didn't need, and I'm pretty confident will never need, any help from his friends in being seen or heard. And to commemorate that very insightful day, I've done you a little photo montage. So here's to Ross, a very, very good friend and the loudest person I know.
Now I will pass over to the final of the three ushers of the talks. I think James is probably the best prepared out of all of us here today. I saw his speech last night. He's got pauses outlined. He's even got it outlined where you all are going to laugh. So, I know what's coming.
Have you got my props?
No. James.
Bastard. There we go, see, I told you these. Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Martin's already touched upon Ross's loudness, but I think really we need to expand upon it. Because we all know Ross, loudness is pretty much his one and only main characteristic.
As you can see.
Ross's loudness, it isn't restricted to just decibels. He had a loud car. Some would say his James Blunt haircut was pretty loud. But today I'd like to focus on Ross's choice of loud clothing. Never one to shy away from a loud pair of chinos, even in the office. I think he's got a nice purple number that he wears quite regularly. I think you'll agree that Ross pretty much likes the look of the only Eton graduate to have made it out of Bexley. Now you'll have to excuse, I've got together a few little examples. It's amazing what you find on the internet nowadays. But the quality's not that great, but also what the main point is, in every single one of these photos you find of Ross, someone seems to have spiked his drink. I have to apologise. So up first is the first love of Ross's life, which he spoke about many times, and it was way before Amy came along. His bright orange Lacoste. And if you'll also look, the lime green polo underneath. It matched my fantastic look. And a pant to match. I'm going to be handing these out later. I think there's a marker pen, so feel free to perhaps you can put them on his wall afterwards. So there you go. Running a close third is what I like to call the Champagne Charlie look. An excellent example of some stripy pink shorts, rolled up cuffs. The Harrow and Eton boys will be proud of this one, I think. Now Ross, on occasion, has also been known to accessorise. With these sporty little numbers, even Elton would be a little bit jealous, I think. Perhaps maybe Dave Edna. And last but not least, this is my favourite. We all know about Ross. You know, he can sometimes come across as fairly arrogant. Given his one ticket to the gun show. And his life being charged. You're all welcome. And Ross, this one's to you, mate. I mean, I would expand upon Martin's point about him punching above his weight, but I think we've done that one. Right. Also, I'd like to, a bit late now, but I'm fairly sure that muscle's been photoshopped. It is off your Facebook page. So.
Oh, God. The dangers of Facebook.
Now, I'm fairly sure everyone in this room has a fondness of Ross, you could say. Well, at least one of us maybe, anyway. But there are those that sometimes find Ross's character a little bit annoying, and it tends to be people that don't know him, the members of the public. So whether it's being thrown out of his local curry house for being too loud, or maybe the man on the tube on the way to visiting Amy who decides to vomit all over you. Or perhaps the Austrian hotel manager that bursts into our room while you're butt naked in the shower, demanding €500 off you. There's always people that take a dislike to Ross. No more so, and I know Dan's touched upon this, than when you set foot on a football pitch. Now, I've never ever played football with anyone who steps on a football pitch and immediately has every member of the opposition wanting to break every bone in a man's body. Now, I'm sure Ross would like me to stand up here now and say it's down to his skill, and I think Dan probably milked it a bit and far too nicely, if I'm being honest. So I'm not going to go there. I liken your style of football to that of a Jack Russell chasing a squeaky ball around the field, nipping away at it all the way, and barking a lot. It has a tendency to wind up the opposition. And it was on a cold night in Bristol that Ross probably took it too far. He was on the pitch for a couple of minutes, and a man decided that the advertising board would be a great place to smash Ross's head into, thus ending up in a trip to A&E. But the injuries aren't limited to Ross alone. Poor old Arthur over there. Ross comes on as a substitute. He has about 2 minutes of kicking away at the opposition until one of them decides enough's enough and headbutts Arthur just below the eye, and splits his eye open, and we got to take him to A&E. But hey, we did win the league, lads. So Ross, there will always be haters. They're only jealous, mate, and we all love you. And as a small token, I've bought you some extra loud clothing to go with your already large collection. There's a nice pink t-shirt. And I don't think you've got this pair of chinos, the colour, the only one you don't have.
Thanks a lot for that one, James, and I look forward to seeing you then in the near future, Ross. Well, you've got your bag for tomorrow, haven't you? Lucky, actually. Could have been tomorrow. Right, time to move on. Going back a little while to when Ross first met Amy. When he first came home after meeting Amy, it was against all odds, actually. It was an evening where he had braved the streets of Camden. That's a very long way from home for Ross, and something that he wouldn't often consider, if I'm honest. But thank God he found the courage. The next day he was doing what all guys do, describing the evening to me, where he went, what he was doing, where he was with, and then he dropped a tramp with a really hot chick called Amy that he bumped into at the bar. He was particularly proud of his smooth chat-up lines. I think it's probably kindest though that you ask him about those yourself later. Only a few days later, there he was after work, brainstorming ideas for their first date, where they were going to go, what they were going to do, which is unlike Ross, to be honest with you. He's very much a slapdash last minute kind of guy. So it's quite clear that they had definitely hit things off. Over the following weeks and months, I quickly came to realise that Amy was the one for Ross. And unfortunately, this was the end of our beloved brotherly marriage in Han. I loved Han. I still love Han. But we had just reached first name terms in the local pub. I was gutted, if I'm honest. Dumped at the age of 28. and I thought I was in my prime. Clearly not. After a fairly amicable separation, we sold our flat and we went our separate ways. Well, that's what he thought. I put my furniture into storage and moved into Teddington. Thanks a lot for that, Amy. I'm sure it wasn't what you wanted. After what seemed like about probably a week, there I was on a Saturday morning, woke up, got out of bed, walked downstairs, went out the back to the toilet, and weirdly Ross was following me. I wasn't quite sure why, a bit worrying. When I finished, I left, I checked, there's no accidents. It has been known.
That was a veto, wasn't it?
But no, he had something to tell me. Amy was impregnant. But Amy was impregnant? Amy was pregnant. They certainly didn't hang around. But after a long pregnancy with its ups and downs, Jack, Robin away in hockey arrived on the 5th of November. That was the day that we welcomed the second Ginge to the hockey field. All we can do is hope he grows out of it.
See what they have to do to get you out of the house.
Jokes aside, I think I can speak for the whole family when I say we're extremely proud of Jack, and we love him with all of our hearts. Ross and Amy are amazing parents, and he really is a lucky man. As previously described, I have been lucky enough to spend quite a lot of time with Ross and Amy, and it's easy to say that they are perfectly suited for one another. They have a sense of togetherness that you don't often see between two people, and they complement each other extremely well. So I'm extremely happy for the both of you. I also want to say it's a huge honour to be your best man today, Ross. I couldn't wish for a better brother, and what you really need is impossible for me to put into words here today. I'm extremely proud of you and what you've achieved so far. And really happy to see you marrying such a beautiful bride today. I also have to say you've done a damn good job of picking my sister. Amy, welcome to the family. We really couldn't wish for anything more. It gives me huge pleasure and even more of a relief to wish Ross and Amy every happiness the world has to offer. Would you please all be upstanding and toast many happy years to Ross and Amy. That's it.
Well, that,